right, welcome to another Dave and Tiff podcast, ready to roll. And if you're watching us on the video portion, it's always interesting to see. You can always tell who our guest is going to be by what Tiff's background looks like. So you can catch the video portion of our podcast on our Facebook page at Dave and Tiff, or you can link onto our what is it called? YouTube page.
YouTube, there you go.
YouTube page, Dave and Tiff, and you'll get all of the podcast episodes we had in the video portion. And of course, the audio portion, you can find it also on our Facebook page, but also on all of your directories where you get your podcasts. But Tiff, looking at that background, our guest today, because you have the Green Monster of Fenway Park behind you, our guest is a former sports reporter here in Hawaii for KITV and now has matriculated to the New England area where he's now an anchor, reporter, on-air entertainer.
Does it all.
Yep, for the New England Sports Network. JAHMAI WEBSTER will be joining us a little bit later, so we're excited to have him. But Tiff, let's start off our episode today with some things that have sort of developed, nothing major since maybe a week ago, but college football. And I kind of was looking at this and saying, okay, who's playing now and who's not? Let's look at who's playing college football. So we got the big three, the power three now, since there's not power five. You got the ACC, SEC, and the Big 12. But then there's also the mid-major conferences that have yet to, unless you've heard something, the American Athletic, AAC, Conference USA, and the Sun Belt, as far as the FBS school leagues, are technically still playing. Have you heard anything about those three?
I have not, but I just want to figure out what these conferences are hearing from their medical personnel that are varying from what the Pac-12, from what the Big Ten, from the Mountain West, because these conferences are not playing football this season. So I'd like to know who these medical people are that are informing these conferences, these presidents, that, certain schools can play football, but other schools, we're going to hold off because we don't think it's safe enough.
Yeah, and I know some of it has to do with, the expense of testing the players, because it's not free, and testing all of them, and, and also staff and support personnel involved with football. But so the curious part is, one thing just related to expenses of maintaining a safe and healthy environment, and leads to kind of like what the doctor's saying. So if ACC, SEC, and Big 12, which have the big money, you would think, okay, they can do it, so why are Pac-12 and Big 10 saying we can't? But here's the interesting part. The mid-major conferences that are playing, who you'd think would have challenges with the expenses, American Athletic, Conference USA, Sun Belt, they're either waiting until the very last minute, or they have found a way to accommodate these expenses, or whatever their process. So I'm interested how those conferences with those schools with less financial resources, like the Mountain West, like the MAC, who have already said we're not playing, how are they doing it? Are they doing something as far as their protocols that allows them to be able to do it efficiently with less expense? I mean, there are those question marks between expenses on the Power 5 and the mid-majors.
The group of fives, yeah, and it's something, especially with UH, with the Mountain West, and it was something that the university was trying to do over the summer was to along with the UH Foundation, to try and raise money on the grassroots level to not only help out individual sports, but also to have like a general fund, COVID-19 general fund type of deal where you donate however much you can, and it just goes into a general fund, and they just list sort of the safety measures that they were going to try to update and enhance over at, the Stan Sheriff Center, Aloha Stadium, Les Murakami, Rainbow Wahine Softball Stadium, just, however individuals could help out specific programs. And of course, we all know UH is not in the Power 5, it's a group of 5. And so they're almost always operating in the red. Very rarely is a group of 5 school operating in the black, making money, that is. So it's just a tough situation for these group of 5 schools. And as we've seen with some of these Power 5 schools, I mean, Barry Alvarez, the AD at Wisconsin, saying that if we don't play football, we're losing between $80 and $100 million. And this is a pretty prominent Power 5 institution.
And Tiff, it should be known that even the Power 5 schools overall athletic budgets, many of them don't operate in the black, like you said. Even with all the millions that they get from football and the TV contracts, they, in terms of supporting their entire athletic budget throughout an entire year, the Wisconsins, the Ohio States, the USCs of the world don't necessarily have a positive operating budget at the end. So you take away football, it's a huge chunk. No one's going away quietly. Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields is starting a petition from the Big Ten to try and they want to play. So, there's still going to be a little bit of unsettled unrest with this whole thing. We talked about financials here at home, here in Hawaii. The University of Hawaii already felt an immediate impact when they had to release a head coach of a very successful program in sand volleyball.
Beach volleyball, yeah. Beach volleyball, yeah. They changed it a couple of years ago. It's gone back and forth.
I mean, it should be beach volleyball. I don't care if they're playing it in Alabama in these sand pits. It's beach volleyball. It's one of those things. So I try to accommodate the initial name, but yeah, it is beach volleyball. Jeff Hall, the head coach of University of Hawaii. Now, you know that whole situation a little bit better in terms of being the volleyball broadcaster, but that head coaching position for beach volleyball was a created position because initially it was supposed to be the women's assistant or associate coach, the number 2 under the head coach, had always had that responsibility as being the head coach for beach, but Hawaii wanted to create a position, make it separate so that you could focus, and it worked well. I mean, under Jeff Hall, they were very successful. I think 5 times consecutively went to the NCAA championships, but that became an expendable position. And I know there was a lot of upheaval about losing Jeff Hall, but if you're David Matlin, the athletic director, and you're looking, okay, look, we're going to face a deficit without football, a big one, that became the one expendable position where you had a means to cover it right off the bat.
Oh, it's just an unfortunate situation, and for like you're talking about the position that was created, it was basically because Scott Wong, the former head coach of at the time it was Sand, he went over to Pepperdine, his alma mater, to be the women's indoor head coach, and so the position was open, and of course Jeff Hall took over, and for a program that went from a sport that wasn't at first sanctioned by the NCAA, then it became sanctioned, and all they've done was gone to the 4 straight NCAA tournaments, a couple of 3rd place finishes, a couple of 4th place finishes. They've won the Big West a couple of times as well. Many All-Americans, a very good program, a very respectable program that's not within the Power 5 institution, but it's just an unfortunate situation. And I've known Jeff for years, great guy, great family guy. And just when the news, I felt for him when the news came out last week, and I reached out to him and just expressed my sentiment, my feelings toward the situation for him, and just something where you had heard from the university a couple of months ago that at last resort they were going to cut coaches. They were going to try to keep as many coaches as they could, keep the benefits and all of that, and never once did you hear, a certain sport, their head coach is on the chopping block. And so to see the news come out last week, it just very, very unfortunate.
So when you talked to Jeff, I assume this was was it something where he kind of was concerned potentially because he knew his position was expendable in terms of there was a way to have covered it real quickly without hiring another person, or was this a total shock?
It was more of a total shock, and just had reached out to him last week Tuesday when the news came out, and he just said, I'm totally devastated, and he's been here for years, and he just appreciates. He's from the Midwest. He's from Minnesota, and so he's as he told me, he appreciates everybody out here. He's able to befriend so many people, whether they were within UH athletics, fans of the sport, or just the people in general. And he's not sure what his next move is, but he's looking forward to it. And I know that if there's a beach opening, whether it's collegiate, high school, there's a very good coach that is looking for another opportunity, if indeed that's where he wants to stay, because as he's told me, he has the greatest job in the world because every day he comes to the office and he doesn't have to wear shoes. Just comes on with his slippers, kicks them off when he gets onto the sand, and he goes right to work.
Yeah, I know, and I hope I'm sure he'll find a spot, because when you're that successful in a program, there are a lot of beach opportunities out there, I would think. But that became
Well, he has to, and we talk about the financials and all of that, but at the end of the day, he's the single dad. He's a girl dad times 2, which is the same thing as our guest for the week coming up in a few minutes. JAHMAI Webster can attest to. Jeff Hall, family man, 2 girls. Bills won't go away, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, you mentioned JAHMAI Webster going to be joining us momentarily. Also, we're going to have a slight twist to the end of our episode. Normally, we have our Tiff's Corner, and I know all our fans of Tiff's Corner is going to be a little sad and devastated, but we just got a little twist because we know there's possibly going to be some stay-at-home kind of thing here in Hawaii, possibly. So we want to get back to a segment we did where we helped you, Dave and Tiff, helps you have a better life while at home, and we're going to provide a special segment to kind of help you move along and move forward. Before JAHMAI comes on, I want to touch on the NBA playoffs starting this week. My Lakers are in there. We're going to talk about your Boston Celtics, and I must say, Tiff, the fact that you say Boston Celtics is your team because your fiance, that's her favorite team, so you don't actually have a favorite NBA team, but
correct.
Okay, if you were married for 5+ years, would that still be the case? If you didn't have a team, now you're in the fiance stage of your relationship, where it's still, the honeymoon stage. It's still all, oh, it's so awesome, it's so exciting. But after being married for 5 years, you kind of get more settled, more in your groove. Would it still be the same if I didn't have an NBA team? Oh, okay, I'll go with my wife's team. Would it still be like that? Do you think?
Yes. Yes, it would. And of course, her mom and dad are big Giants fans. Her dad's a Vikings fan. So, I mean, I'll support and I'll root for their teams, of course. And they will follow the Padres because that's my baseball team. I was a Chargers fan until they moved north to Los Angeles or to Carson, wherever they're playing in a soccer stadium. But yes, to answer your question, it would be if it was 5 years after marriage, I would still be a Celtics fan to support my better half.
Okay, all right. We'll put that to the test here as our guest is in the waiting room, coming in all the way from the East, or specifically from New England. He used to be a sports anchor reporter here in Honolulu, Hawaii, and then he went to Denver, Colorado, and then he eventually found his way over to the New England area. JAHMAI Webster joining us here, and JAHMAI is connected. JAHMAI, can you hear us?
Yeah, what's going on, fellas?
Hey, doing good. Look at that. See, he's a professional.
Look at that setup.
Yeah, he got the microphone.
You gotta do it.
He's got the awards in the background, the Boston logo in the back. So
yeah, man.
he's all prepped. JAHMAI, thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we get started, I had a story. I want to see if you remember this from your time here in Hawaii, okay?
Okay.
Do you remember when the University of Hawaii basketball program had their version of Midnight Madness? They called it Midnight Ohana. And the women's basketball team would play like a game against celebrities. You were one of the celebrities that was supposed to play, but you had, I think, a work thing, so you came late. Now, I was the PA announcer kind of doing like play-by-play, so the Wahine are playing all these celebrities who are grossly out of shape, and then you came straight from whatever your assignment was, didn't change your clothes, so you had a dress shirt on, long pants, and these loafer shoes. You just came running on the court. You were slip sliding all over the place because it had no grip, but you got a pass in the corner. You launched one from 3-point range, all net. And I remember saying on the PA for everybody to hear, it's got to be the shoes. Do you remember that game? That participation that you had?
Are you kidding me, Dave? How can I forget? That was one of the highlights of my time in Hawaii because I was able to prove to everybody that I could get buckets, most importantly, no matter where. It's like #ball is life. But yeah, that was one of the highlights for sure. I remember that like it was yesterday. I still got some pictures somewhere to prove it as well. So for all the folks listening out there, this actually did happen. And I hit a few that night, and the guys were quite impressed too as they were waiting for their turn.
Look at that. I hit a few that night. So
Modest.
we should have had do you still have the shoes though? That's the question.
Oh no, I let those boat shoes go a long time ago. I got a new pair though. I got a new pair, so maybe I have to rock those. And,
okay, I got you. Now, now that you're in the Boston area, and we're going to get into a lot of the Boston sports scene, obviously, because they're there. But you know, anytime someone lives in Hawaii, either was from here or has lived here, and they go to the mainland, wherever they go, usually they're saying, "Oh, people always ask me about my time in Hawaii. They'll ask me questions." What is, or have you encountered a consistent or most common question people ask of you about your time in Hawaii?
Oh yeah, number one question. As soon as they figure out that I lived in the 808 for a bit, they're like, "Why would you leave?" That's the number one question. Because here in the Northeast, obviously, you're experiencing so many different seasons, and then in winter, it's so harsh and so brutal. So that's the number one question: is why would you leave? And I always tell them, if I had been, 50, 55, 60, then I would have never left. But the fact that I was in my early 20s at the time and still advancing my career, so many more opportunities were out there. But I mean, it's still home. I visit every year since I left, actually, in 2014. So I've been back every year since then. I've taken my daughters back recently. And one day, if I ever reach the level of, say, a Bob Costas or something, it'll be where I have a part-time home, and then, I'll cover sports during the off season or whatever. So, it's still a part of me forever.
So how many daughters do you have?
I have 2 now. Can you believe that? It's crazy.
Congratulations.
Wow. Thank you. I got a 3-year-old, Sophia, and I got a 4-month-old now, Araya, who was just born in March. She's my Corona baby.
Oh my goodness, congratulations. And you're obviously getting no sleep whatsoever. So we appreciate you joining us. Now, I do have another, just because I'm naive to the New England area, but
okay.
There's the New England Patriots, but it seems that Boston is they're considered a Boston-like team. So the term New England, is that really, like, people up there, do they consider that the 13 original states, or is it really a fancy way of saying Boston? I really don't know, and I thought maybe you could help explain the term New England, because you work for the New England Sports Network, but it's a Boston-heavy coverage. So help me with that.
No, absolutely, and I'm here to provide some geographic knowledge for you as well, Dave. So it's New England sports. So it's Boston, obviously the Boston NFL team. But it's New England because our viewership, our coverage area at New England Sports Network is comprised of the 6 New England states. So it's Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and I'm forgetting one right now. Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and
Maine, Delaware?
No, Maine. There it is, Maine. That's
Hey.
it. Maine. So sorry for my Mainers out there listening. I love that state. I've actually visited a couple times, but those are the 6 New England states that it's comprised of. So our viewership on average, like the high rating Red Sox game, for example, can reach about 1 million people depending on the night. So that's kind of the 6 New England states that it's comprised of. That's why we say New England Sports Network, because we're seen in all these different places, although our coverage is Boston heavy, because that's where the professional sports teams are. And that's even where the network is, in a suburb of Boston, if that makes sense. Really
I got you. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, JAHMAI, the Red Sox, as you can see in my background, they're having no fans. Of course, the Bruins are in Canada as part of the NHL bubble. The Celtics are in Florida as part of the NBA bubble. For you guys at NESN, what has been the big difference? Has it been easier? Has it been harder covering teams that are in the bubble?
Right, great question too. But I just want to correct you. It's NESN. Just to give you the correct pronunciation there, but. Yeah, it's been certainly a challenge. Which I know you guys can understand that as well, because in sports like baseball, for example, you don't have the everyday access to the clubhouse, the opportunity to get those insider stories and kind of be able to break news and provide a different layer to your coverage, to whether it's your viewers or the people who read your stuff when it comes to the beat writers. So that's been a little bit difficult, but because you formulated these relationships, prior to a worldwide pandemic coming in and interrupting things, you're able to, maybe text or, maybe email or whatever the case may be, DM on social media, and have an opportunity to get some insight there. Although you don't always want to lean on those things when you don't have to, but it's certainly been a challenge. But it almost feels in some instances, and I hesitate to say this because their teams may be listening and be, feeling like we can do this forever now, but it feels like we're actually getting more access to the players in a sense because they're making more players available on a daily basis, especially when it comes to the sport of baseball, because there's 160 games there. So guys get tired of talking, obviously, but now they're presenting 3 and 4 players pre and post game and having an opportunity to speak to everybody. There's times at games where I necessarily don't need anything, but I'm there to provide whatever is the news of the day, if anything is, anybody is interviewed or whatnot. So sometimes I just sit there in the clubhouse during the hour, 90-minute availability, and nothing really happens. There's other times where it's a lot of news happening and you want to, make sure that you're in there, but it's been a challenge, and you lose the humanity of it all. Like, I'd love to be sitting with you guys as well doing this whole thing, but that's probably the toughest part, not having the ability to, just interact and feel and really get to, feed off the energy of whoever you're discussing anything with.
I would ask, what is going on with the Red Sox? 6-16, they've lost 7 in a row. But I want to ask you, Mookie Betts going from Boston to Los Angeles. Do you have a favorite Mookie Betts story?
Oh man, you had to go there, straight to the heart, huh? Cutting us deep. Losing Mookie Betts, a generational talent like that for sure. And as you said, your background is Fenway Park. In this day and age, that's like a live look-in right now because there is nobody there. But yeah, Mookie, so many great stories with Mookie. But mine, I guess, really had nothing to do with baseball. It's just about talking about life in sports, I would say. 2 instances where, because he also is a girl dad too. He had a daughter, Kinley, and I think she's 1 year old now, maybe a little bit older, but I had to give him dad advice one time and was telling him, hey, there's not going to be any sleep. You're going to be dealing with this, that, and the other. And sometimes you might have those poop explosion diapers, and those are really toxic. So maybe try to escape and have your wife take care of that at that point. But that, and the fact that he is also a multi-sport athlete. So one time we were in Tampa, actually. It was a Rays series, and we were talking about how he got the name Mookie. And I was like, where'd you get it from? Because some people say it was from the other Major League Baseball player, Mookie Wilson, I believe his name was, with the Mets. But it was Mookie Blaylock. His mom loved hoops. She was a big-time basketball fan. And then I was like, hey, can you dunk? He looked at me with it was like the scorched the earth look. Like, are you kidding me? I am a professional athlete. And we got into it over hoops and our love for the sport. And, Mookie's just a great guy. It's horrible, the fact, how his tenure ended in Boston, getting him traded. But, he's such a great dude. And the Dodgers, they're lucky to have him. As you can see, he's been tearing it up. And he's missed out here for sure.
By the way, I'm a big Dodger fan, so I'm grateful for the fact that what is Boston's loss is Dodgers' gain. So let that work there. Hey, give me a little insight into the Boston sports kind of environment. Now, preface, right? Your network, the New England Sports Network, is owned by the Boston Bruins and the Boston Red Sox, correct?
Right. 80% stake of the Red Sox, 20% Bruins.
Yes, but you cover all Boston. So
right.
First of all, I look at Boston as a really professional town. It's one of the few that has all four teams, in the major sports, so hockey. And all 4 of them, well, 3 of them, the Red Sox, Bruins, and the Celtics, are really historic in terms of they are from the origins of their respective leagues. Then you got the Patriots, who are, under the Brady Belichick era, has been the new dynasty, right? In terms of they've had this 20 years of success. Which franchise in the Boston area is kind of the one that carries the most weight, if you will? Like, which one generates, the passion more? Is there one that generates more of the passion than the other?
That's a great question. And it's been one that I have been challenging some of the people who have spent their entire life with in New England, in the Boston area as well. And it really depends on who you ask. And it depends on the time of season and if the teams are doing well also. So it's those three factors that kind of base it. But some of the old heads, they're like, yeah, this is a hockey town and it started that way. Because as you mentioned, the Boston Bruins, part of the original 6 teams in the NHL. So they have that origin story, and they've had, more than 100 years of history for that ball club. The Red Sox, the same thing. The Patriots is more recent, but the people who are real hardcore early Patriots fans, they suffered through so long. So basically the last 2 decades has been an anomaly for them, and they've certainly enjoyed the ride. But I would say that during my time, I feel like I came in under the impression that it was a football town. But when baseball season is here, because it's so frequent, and I mean, this team sells out literally every single night. It could be a day game at 1:00 on a Tuesday. The place is packed, jam-packed. I feel like it's more of a baseball town. But then you think about, the Bruins last year making it to the Stanley Cup final. And that was the first time I really saw this place invigorated, at least to that extent, where everyone was all in on the Bruins. I will say they equally support their teams probably across the board, whether they're doing horrible, like the Red Sox are struggling right now, or whether on top of the world. It's always, a very strong fan base, and these people are indeed fanatics about their sports.
Take us back to KITV when you're on the sports desk and you were learning a lot from both Brandy Higa and Robert Kikaula. You had a nickname while you were working at KITV, and it always baffled me when I heard it, when I saw it. I never quite understood it. Can you tell our viewers what that nickname was and how you got it?
Yeah, sure. You the one that's always bringing this up, Tiff. You want to keep this alive. I thought I was behind us, but no, we had fun with it. And the nickname was JAHMAI Mahi. And it stemmed from, I had these beta fish, 2 actually during this time. One, tragically, I didn't know how to care for it, so he didn't have a long life. But the second one lived even years after I had left the station. Several years after, actually. I'd always check in with Brandy because I gave him to her to take care of him. But that's kind of where it stemmed from, basically. Me having fish in the office and, really making it homey. And then Robert Kikaula, just kind of being, oh my God, this guy, what is he doing, basically? So I believe it was Kenny Choi, one of the anchors at the time, and then Yunji Denise, who basically, they started the nickname. And that's kind of how it was birthed. Actually, you know what? That's a lie. That's not true. It was Rob DeMello. Now that I think about it, I think it was Rob DeMello who began it, and then it kind of just took flight. He just said it, as kind of a joke. One of his things that, you guys know him well too. So, and I think that's kind of how it took flight. I may have tweeted it out or something back in the day, and then they just started calling JAHMAI Mahi. And then next thing you know, Yunji created a Twitter account, which still lives today. And, it kind of just took off from there. So it got to the general public. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
JAHMAI Webster joining us from the New England Sports Network, former reporter anchor here in Hawaii for KITV News. Got to get your take on the NBA playoffs, which starts this week. The Boston Celtics are taking on the 76ers. So I look at the Celtics and I think, okay, great. Kemba Walker is healthy and he's been a good plus. I look at the Sixers and they say, well, they got to deal with Joel Embiid, but he's some guy who I think is one of the more overrated big men. And I have a feeling he's going to get some injury like he always does, and he won't pan out and the Celtics will come away victorious. What's your take on the playoffs?
I think the playoffs are going to be exciting. To answer your question in short, but I agree with you there. Joel Embiid is Mr. Glass for sure. Always finding a way to get injured, and he had 2 actually leading up to this series. But I think this series specifically, which actually kicks off tonight, I don't know when people will see this or listen to this podcast, I think it's going to be a tough one because of their history. And then Al Horford, obviously one of the big men inside for the 76ers, who spent quite a bit of time with the Celtics previously. He's a matchup problem because he can stretch it inside and outside. And really, the Celtics don't have an answer right now, and they're missing one of their big guys, Daniel Tice, who was fighting back from injury as well, who'd probably be a matchup on him. I think he could be the difference maker. I still think the Celtics win the series. They just have more star power, more superstars, more guys who can fill it up with, 20-point nights consistently. But if Joel Embiid gets going, he can score 40 and pull down 20 boards. That's really somebody that they don't have an answer for either. So I think it'll be one on the perimeter and not on the inside when it comes to the Celtics, because that's where they have the advantage, especially with Ben Simmons kind of being out as well.
And of course, if Kemba has some of those shoes that you have, I think that'll bring some heat. Hey, final question, Jahmai. I noticed in the background you have an award back there that looks like, could it be like an Emmy or?
That's right.
What award is that?
This is an Emmy. That's my Emmy. I'm an Emmy award-winning host now, so I just want to add that to my resume, make sure people understand that. I won that here at Nesson actually in last year, 2019, for the work that we did on this kids show that I hosted called Nesson Clubhouse, which was always every Sunday, 90 minutes before the game, and it was basically an interactive show that taught kids about the game of baseball and really informed them, whether it was technology and all these things. And it's won several Emmys actually. It's a great show that was, birthed, or the idea actually came from the Red Sox ownership, the wife of the Red Sox owner, John Henry, who decided it. And we had been having it since, I think, 2015, 2016, around there, when the first series was brought to life. And I think we've won at least 5 Emmys for the show. And this was my first actually in my career as well. So I'm very proud of that because it was different. It was a kid show. It was educational. It was informative, and it was fun. So that is an Emmy back there, amongst other things.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. Congratulations on your family, and obviously great success with the New England Sports Network. Thanks so much for joining us, and good luck to the Celtics. And by the way, Tiff says that's his favorite NBA team only because his fiance that's her favorite team.
Oh, what?
Good luck to the Celtics if they meet the Lakers. And I'm sorry, all bets are off. But thanks, Jahmai, for joining us.
I'm with you there. Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure, man. Much love. Aloha.
Take care.
Thanks, Jahmai.
Jahmai Webster from the New England Sports Network, who joined us all the way from the East Coast, former anchor with KITV. One of the things I like about some of these guys who go to the mainland after they do their time here, Tiff, is that, they always remember fondly about their time here, whether it was a springboard to greater things and we've seen a lot of them eventually come back. They go to the mainland and then they come back. So, and it'll be great if Jahmai were to come back, because he brought a lot of energy. You can see his personality. He has that passion for sports, very positive. I'm just one of those nice, refreshing, good guys that you love in the sports media world.
You do, and you talk about guys that are now on the mainland, of course, Mike Cherry in the New England area as well, Chris Tanaka in the Midwest, Mark Carpenter, who was in California for a time, came back. He's recently back now. He's working with Hawaii News now. But like you said, these guys that have appreciated their time when they have been here in the islands, they don't forget it. They always remember it, and it's always a topic star. When I travel for volleyball, when you go for Wahine basketball, and people find out obviously you're the voice of a certain Hawaii sport, but the fact that you're born and raised, it just begins a topic. It's a topic generator. But how awesome is it that we spent almost 20 minutes with Jahmai, and we talked Red Sox, Bruins, Celtics. We didn't even talk about the New England Patriots.
Yeah, we didn't touch on that. Then again, Tom Brady's not there, so what's there to talk about? Except we can talk about Cam Newton. And, that's true. We could have gone even longer talking about football. That's training camps are starting. So I guess we got to just get Jahmai on another time. That's just
yes,
we got to do it. But thanks to Jahmai for joining us. Okay, we're going to do this, our final segment here, something new. We did this a few episodes ago, and I even forgot what it was called. But this is going to be Dave and Tiff's tips for staying at home. And we might look at it in different ways and angles toward this. But for today's episode, we're going to give you our recommendations on things you can purchase online that might make life at home a bit easier or entertaining or something of that nature. So, instead of having to go out and shop for it, look for this online as a recommendation, and maybe it can help you with your stay at home. So, Tiff, what were you able to have dug up, or maybe you have gotten yourself?
I have not gotten either of these for myself, but I saw these online the other night. For those that are into yoga or Pilates, there are these toe separator socks, and they provide relief from tingling because of diabetes. They also provide stability and flexibility.
Okay, I'm going to guess and really go out on a limb here that you actually do not take yoga.
You've seen me many times. Does it look like I do yoga or Pilates, Dave? Come on. No.
I will say this. I did take hot yoga for a brief period of time. And that was only because I kind of had to for a work-related thing. We're trying to get the yoga studio as a sponsor. Hot yoga, the most uncomfortable thing I had to endure, 113 degrees in a room. But it was beneficial. But I can see where those socks can help because at least in the hot yoga, I mean, you sweat like crazy. And if you can develop the circulation in your feet or separation in your toes, I wish we could show what it looked like. But does it look like regular socks? And it looks like each toe can go into a separate...
Yeah, they look like little gloves, but instead of for your hands, they're for your feet.
Ah, okay. So they're officially called toe separator socks?
Yes.
Okay.
That they are.
Here's mine, and we're kind of on the same wavelength here because it's something you can buy to help your body. I have neck pain, and that's not because I'm constantly craning my neck left and right. It's just maybe because I'm just getting old. But for those of us who get that neck pain, this product is called a neck hammock. So think of it this way: it's literally like a hammock for your neck that's connected on either side to these straps. And the straps, you'd connect it or hook it onto like a doorknob. The video shows it on a doorknob. So you connect it to the doorknob, and then you put the back of your head into the hammock as you lie on the floor. And then the hammock actually kind of lifts your head up. So your head is not flat on the floor, but it's lifted up by the hammock, and it stretches that back of your neck, that, whatever you call it. I know there's a medical term for it anyway. But so your vertebrae gets stretched a bit and causes the blood to circulate more, and it relieves the muscle tension that causes a lot of our neck pain. So that's called the neck hammock. About $49 if you purchase. By the way, how much are the socks?
Socks are, I think, about $15, $16 online.
Oh, shoot. Okay, that's way cheaper than this neck hammock. But yeah, look for the neck hammock online, the socks, and you could have your feet circulating better, or maybe even your neck feel.
Well, I actually have one more, and this if you are a dog owner, this one would be a lot cheaper. And this is something I did when I was growing up, and you can ask my mom because she can attest to what I would do growing up. I would take a baseball bat or a stick, and this would improve my hand-eye coordination. This is at like 5 or 6 years old. I would grab some dog food and go individual pieces at a time, toss them up, and hit them with a stick. And that would improve your hand-eye coordination. You don't have to spend any money at all.
So is this a way to feed your dog, or a way to improve your eye, hand, bat skills?
It could be a combination of working your hand-eye coordination, also feeding your dog, and also getting him or her some exercise in the backyard.
There you go.
See?
That's a multi-cross training thing right there. That has to be the best recommendation we got. Since we got pets, I wonder if it worked for cats, because I have a cat. But you got your pet, get a bat, get some dog food, and smack it around in the backyard, and there you go. I'm now at 5, 6 years old. Were you able to hit a lot, or was it a lot of swing and miss?
No, I'm pretty modest, but there was not a whole lot of swing and miss. I'm still a contact hitter.
All right. And there we go. Those are Dave and Tiff's tips for staying at home. Hey, we're going to end our episode today, but I want to thank JAHMAI Webster for coming on, a former reporter and sports anchor here, but now at the New England Sports Network. We had a chance to talk all New England. He clarified what New England means again, and I'm not going to go through the 6 states that the network broadcasts to because I'll probably forget them. But I want to thank
also it's Nesson, not Neeson.
Nesson, N-E-S-N, New England Sports Network. So log on there and you'll get to see JAHMAI, or Jamahi Mahi, as the locals like to call him from his nickname. Mahi Mahi meaning a fish, obviously. So thanks to him joining us. Tiff, thanks again. And we'll have another episode coming up. We'll have more interesting segments to conclude our episodes to help you stay at home. And also, we'll also have the next episode, I promise, we'll have Tiff's Corner back again. So thanks, Tiff, and to everyone out there, stay safe and have a great week.
Wear your mask.